Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Let me go ahead this week and introduce my guest. I am extremely appreciative of my guest coming on today. Daryll Blackhall, the executive director of Workforce Advantage Academy. And I think what you do is incredible. We've talked to you before on the podcast, but we've kind of gotten into numerous different topics and segues. I want to talk about Workforce Advantage Academy. I want to talk about your school and all you do because it's a lot of good. And I want to talk about even the prospects of expanding what you do across the country. Now, I know you've had a director of education, I believe, come to your school and love what you do, just like we all love what
Right.
you do, and talk
Yeah.
about.
Director Manny Diaz came in last year, and because he had heard, the he that we're working on this. Not every kid's going to go to college, right? But it doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful in life, right? So what are you doing, charter school, to help our students be prepared for that life after high school? And a lot of our kids, because of the economy or for whatever reason, they're having to work more to get that. We don't have that luxury of a two-parent household a lot of times, and so that older student or older child, let's say, becomes that second breadwinner. But they shouldn't have to give up their dream on a high school diploma, because they have to work to help keep the lights on at mom's house. So we really work with those kids who have fallen behind, either with GPA or fallen behind with credit recovery, and so that way they are ready for that life after high school, and they've earned a real high school diploma to take on to college or trade school or job corps or wherever they want to.
So that's an incredible thing you do, and it's like, so you're a standalone facility, right? Because I remember when we've talked before, you said you don't have a lower school to recruit from to bring in new students. So what you do is you send out mailings and stuff. So like, just for example, I mean, just the geographics alone, are you on a school campus with a lower school beside you, or are you your own charter school?
Yes, sir. We are our own charter school, right? We are actually we lease this facility. It's like, we've gone back to 2000, right? We're in a bunch of portable buildings. And we lease this from New Covenant Baptist Church. They're a great partner here on Rio Grande. And so we're actually just down from Jones High School. So we are in this. We're in this neighborhood. We've been here now since 2018, and we are part of this whole, Washington Shores area, Holden Heights, trying to get as many kids as we can to come in.
So now this is my big question because what you do is incredible and what you just explained is there's a need. Like, so for example, there's this need. It's not just in Orlando. There's these kids that are literally, and we've discussed this, so it's nothing new to me, that are not doing well in high school. And one of the reasons they're not doing well in high school is because life has been dropped right on their shoulders. They're literally
Absolutely.
breadwinners. They're literally bringing home what they're doing what they can do to keep their family eating and sleeping in a home or a shelter of some sort.
Absolutely.
So so my point is, and I'm just gonna sort of metaphorically speaking, imagine if we not franchise because it's not a business, it's a charter school, but if we
Right.
franchise, if your school you say portables, there's portables on every school campus in Florida pretty much. We
Absolutely.
added those portables to the middle schools and said, we have this kid, we see this problem. Not this challenge. Let's not call it a problem because life is full of challenges. We see this kid has this challenge. He's not doing well in school. A big part of it is because he is trying to bring home the bacon to mom, who may not be
Right.
always available as a mom. And we say, hey, we see you struggling. So why don't you go talk to Daryl or another director of the Workforce Academy and see what he has to offer you moving into the middle school where you may flounder more and then ultimately lose interest in education completely. Is that because I know you've talked about it and so many people have expressed interest in, including the director of Florida's education, that we do more of this. Is there a chance of that ever happening?
Well, I would say in our counties that have that potential where they could hire a lot of kids, that this would be able to be moved. It does take a special kind of teacher. It does take a special kind of administrative. You got to think just a little bit differently, because our students are a little different, right? We're only 11th and 12th grade. So our kids are between 17 and 19. And so you gotta be flexible to work with them, but also too, you have to show that tough love to be able to say, no, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. This is my standard, right? You got to meet my standard. Um, and that takes a special kind of teacher, right? Our teachers are, they're probably 30 plus in age, and they've been teaching for a while. So they're kind of seasoned, and they're not afraid of classroom control. They're not afraid of different things like that. But as long as the jobs are available, this school would work, right? Because because work is you get two elective credits for having your job. So if you could find a city that would be big enough to support 200, 300 kids working part-time, that would be, I think it's a perfect fit. Because sometimes, Trip, it's not always just kids that want to keep the lights on. Sorry, I have a timer on my lights.
I knew
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
it's not just always kids who are trying to keep the lights on. Sometimes it's just a kid, man, I don't want to sit in a classroom 5 days a week, right? I want to go out and do something else. I want to start to be prepared for that next that life after high school. So they get that first job, right? It may not be their dream job, but it's a job that's going to help them build the tools that they need for their life going forward. So that self discipline, those soft skills, those people skills, that learning how to run a cash register, those are so important in this time. And we're not sure what this new economic climate is going to bring, and this new administration is going to bring. And so we have to have kids ready, not just in service related jobs, but maybe we need to start looking at those kids that get them ready for manufacturing jobs, because manufacturing may return. It may not be all China, all Canada, all Mexico anymore. Maybe some of those jobs are going to return, and we need kids ready to enter into those fields.
So that's a great point. We are in a transition. There's no doubt about it. We're in a transition where we could see manufacturing jobs come back. For example, let's say Ford Motor Company, they employ about 70,000 people. The bulk of them are here in the United States. I've just read about 13,000 are in Canada and Mexico, but the
Okay.
bulk, the 56,000 are here. We bring those 13,000 back. They're great jobs. They're high paying jobs. I've heard Ford is paying around with benefits and all, it's costing for it $60 to $70 an hour per employee. Manufacturing jobs, huge. But like you said, we these kids have to have the life skills, the
Right.
skills in general.
Absolutely.
So a book I read was Charles Koch's book From the Bottom Up, and he talks about it's not just kids with challenges who enter the corporate world with no skills. It's kids from Harvard who
Oh,
enter the car.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's kids. It's and corporations spend a fortune developing these. So one example of that is called Lake House. That's KPMG's Lake House out in Lake Nona. They have a whole academy. KPMG hires incredible minds, not necessarily just accountants. KPMG is an accounting firm, but they
Okay.
just hire great thinkers to tell businesses how to rethink their business, to literally sleep in their hotels and watch every employee and what they're doing and create
Right.
plans, action plans. But those kids, these incredible thinkers that have graduated Harvard, that KPMG hires to be their next partners, corporate partners, need corporate and life skills. They send them to Lake House, which is the only reason I know that is because I work for the Hyatt, and the Hyatt manages Lake House as a
Right.
hotel, as a learning facility, but also a living facility. So what I'm saying is Lake let's put the cart before the horse. Let's develop these kids before they even, and how do we do that on a grand scale? And that's what you're doing in a great way for a lot of great kids. But how do we really make that an option more and more and more and more? So when you say the challenge is having it, I mean, is it an option to have the actual experienced instructors online on a big video wall with another teacher that's not necessarily ready for this, but may.
You could, right? I mean, yes, absolutely you could. The thing that I think um gets a lot of folks is we have an AB schedule, right? So our kids don't come to school 5 days a week because they're at their job. So we like our A schedule's here every Monday, every Thursday. B schedule is here every Friday, every Tuesday, and then they rotate every other Wednesday because we need to get that seat time in, right? Since we offer them a real diploma at the end, we have to get those educational minutes in. So we rotate those Wednesdays, and a lot of times it doesn't fit. Our model doesn't really fit. It's not traditional. That's why it fits in charter schools, because we're allowed to be different. But in a traditional school setting, it's like, no, you're here 35 minutes, right? 35 minutes, come in, get your book, take roll, yada, yada, off to the next one. And you get 7, 8 periods a day. Where we're here, you come in, you're here, you're on your Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, and you're in class an hour and 5 minutes, and you have to be there, right? You put your phone away, you do those kind of things, because not only do I need you here, I need you present, right? We talk about that. We do take the time to talk about resiliency. What do you do when you've had a bad day on the job, right? So we can talk about life, we can talk about budgeting, we can talk. The glory of being a charter school is that we don't have to be on page 6 at the end of the second week, right? We have more flexibility to scaffold our lessons the way we need to our audience. And that is so important, to, I think, get those kids ready for that life after high school, right? And I think that's why dealing with 11th and 12th graders is so good, because they've reached a maturity where they're starting to understand, right? I don't want to live in mom's house forever. Or I know I'm not going to live in mom's house forever, and I need to be ready. I need to know how to make a budget. I need to know how to make a grocery list. I need to know how to balance my, even though, my bank pops up online, you know what, they make mistakes too. And you need to know, if my deposit is right, if my money going out is right. And you need to know that. I mean, being able to graph a line is great, right? And to know y x equals 6, that's great. But you also need to know how to rent an apartment, how to lease a car, how to do those kind of things. Why am I not getting this credit card? I know it's at 30% interest, but is that bad? What does that even mean? But these kids, if you don't teach them, my mantra, Trump, if you don't teach a child, an adult won't know, right? So
Right.
so you we have to do those things to get them ready for that life post high school. And we talk about that high school diploma, right? And we talk about, a high school diploma doesn't mean anything unless you don't have one. Then you discover its worth, right? And so we want them to keep pushing, go to work, do your job, put that money in your pocket, and then come back to school, because math's important, English is important, science is important, right? We need you to do those things. But while we're here, we're also going to talk about budgeting, and we're going to talk about resiliency. We're going to talk about those kind of life skills too. And being a charter school gives us the ability to do that, because we're not so we're not so circled in where we got to treat every unit, every child the same. So we can focus more on the student. Plus, we only have 300 kids, right? So when you start looking at it that way, you realize that you can. I know my students. I know who their mom is. I know who their pets are. I know where they're working. Heck, a lot of times I know who their boss is. So it's just a really good program trip to get these kids ready because life's waiting outside the door, and it can either put its arm around you and hug you on the way out or whack you with a bat if you're not ready. So we just need to have more kids ready. I mean, I know graphing lines is important. Being able to pass that algebra 1 test is important. Those things are all important. But man, if you can't write your grocery list, that's important too, right? So I just think that we concentrate sometimes on things that in life don't matter as much.
That's where I agree 100%. When I was a kid in school, I did terrible in school. I went on, we had a program essentially similar where I could go work in a place and they would call it like work credits or something. I left
Yeah,
school
yeah,
early to go to work. And it was a company I had a future with that company. I mean, if I didn't leave New York and I came to Florida, if I didn't come to Florida, that they had already promoted me to one position that was at the headquarters in the warehouse, and I could have climbed the ladder with that company. And I learned a lot from going to school between I started in 10th grade, going to work, leaving school at 12 and going to work there. I learned a lot from those old guys. There was no structured curriculum teaching me about life, but I learned a lot working with those old guys. Then I went on to the warehouse, and it wasn't a warehouse position. I was in the service department in a warehouse position. I was right there with the owners. It was a big, giant company. So I understand that. But as far as grafting, as far as algebra, as far as biology, I was awful. But a good part of the reason I was awful is because I just didn't focus. I'm actually fairly smart, but I just didn't care.
right.
And so, just like
Absolutely.
you said, I could have got through it. How do I get through it? So I always think of this. I've been thinking of this a lot since the first time we talked, the last time we talked, the time in between. I think we've done this is our fourth time we've talked. That this program needs to be expanded. There's three things you said that were really incredible to me. A high school diploma isn't important until you don't have one. The fact that you only have 300 kids is a huge difference you're making in 300 people's lives that are gonna
True.
ultimately, because of you, some, not necessarily me, but some kids that just never find their path without a person or an education like you're providing them. They find that at their young age, the only thing they have to trade over and above their older competition is themselves, which is leads them to a life of crime and a life of human trafficking. And that's, as much as it's the darkest possible option, it happens.
Oh
And
yeah, it happens.
avoiding that's really a big part of my sense of mission. Somehow being a part of avoiding that, whether it's getting to point out that Daryll Blackwell is doing this incredible task and we need to expand it nationwide. So I'm landing at a point here. What if, just say, just hypothetically, in a perfect world, we made it that if you did focus enough to get through the grades to the point to pass the graphing and to pass the
Right.
biology, minimal but pass, then you had the option of Daryl's School or Workforce Advantage Academy. You had to have passing grades to have that option. But then that option also was incentive based. You get to Workforce Advantage Academy and you show up and you stay focused. Because when you talk about seat time, it's not just seat time. Yeah, the state requires seat time, but they're learning incredible life skills during that seat time.
Right.
So you make that seat time incentive based. You say, hey, you make it through this five of these 45-minute courses, you get a $30 Amazon gift card. And granted, it's money. It's all translates down to money. But we somehow we get the funding, and then these kids are leaving your school or the expansions of your school ready for the workforce. Because sooner or later, we're not okay. However much I agree or disagree with this administration, if you eliminate the illegal aliens that are doing certain tasks that nobody wants to do, and you bring in high-paying manufacturing jobs that our kids aren't really focused or are not dedicated enough to really do well, sooner or later there's going to be a void. So we've got to fill that void before that void happens. So,
Absolutely, we do.
right.
100%.
I'm not saying it's a bad movement what's happening. I'm saying if we're going to go through this movement, let's just not make it so we've gone through the motions. We've said, oh, look at all we've accomplished. And now we're looking at a crashing economy because we simply don't have workers that show up for work, that don't have the
Right.
discipline to show up for work. And then they do show up for work and they're making $50 an hour wage and they're just squandering it at some gambling hall across the street from their workplace.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, so this
Liquor
is
and
really
weed.
something. And
You
we
are, because you are 100% spot on, brother. Preaching to the choir, because I am so with you. Because look, I don't care who's in the White House. I really don't. I
I don't
mean,
care, and I
I
don't
don't
care about the
care, right?
policy.
I don't care. What I do care about is I care about kids, right? I care about what I need, the tools I need to help them be prepared down the road. Because Trip, I'm 60 plus, man. And so my days of fighting this battle, I may have 5 more years in me. Hell, I may not. I don't know. I want to make sure I got as many kids as I can ready, right? I want them ready for life. And I don't care if that is college, God bless you, get on them, or if I want us in this country to look at our plumbers, our welders with as much respect as we do our doctors and lawyers, right? And if we could achieve that, because they're all necessary, right? I mean, those are necessary. Look, you don't think a plumber is necessary? Let your potty be broke for a week, right? No, right? No, that guy is important. So you want to make sure and so how do we do that? We've got to instill in these kids that these trades are important. Electricians are important. Drywallers are important. Painters are important. And and then these kids get out there, they're starting to realize that these guys who are plumbers, contractors, countertop makers, they're making some money, right? These guys aren't coming out to your house for $10 an hour, right? No, they're making some cash. Get out there and get after it, and don't be afraid to get a little dirty to make that money, because you can do it. And you were so spot on, Trip. These kids are not less than. They're not stupid.
No,
They just don't want to graph a line because they're already thinking, look, man, when am I going to use this again? Right? When am I going to use this skill ever again? And because I'm going to be the guy that works at Publix, right? Or I'm going to be the guy that does this, or I want to work on a car. And they're not going to ask me to graph a line to work before I change the oil on this car. So I'm never going to use it. So this is almost, and I get it. But they say this is almost a waste of my time, coach, right? And and then we talk about an individual being a brand, you being a business of one, right? You are your own employee, but you're also the manager of that employee. And so now, why am I graphing that line? Because you're investing in your business. Why am I learning poetry? Because you're investing in your business, right? Because you have to try to be the most well-rounded person you can be. And then we go, and you need to do this to get that diploma, right? Because if you can show a contractor, look, I can sit in a classroom for an hour and I can learn how to graph a line, I think you can trust me with that toolbox, right? So it's not like it's a lost skill. You just have to get them to understand that, oh, coach, you mean if I can do this, then it's transferable and they'll trust me to do this. And I can go, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? And we do that in relationship building. A lot of we got a lot of young men that would rather just go home and sit and play video games and not take out the trash. And then that causes angst in the house. And I said, no, you just got to be grown and go to ask your mom. Hey, mom, what do I need to do? I'd like to go in there and play some games, but I need to know what you need done first, right? So that way I take care of my business before I go over there and play. So we talk about, man, we would talk about so much stuff, Trip. I always talk about, my day, 24 hours divided into 3/8, right? So I got 8 hours to do my job, right? I got 8 hours for my whatever I'm doing. I'm volunteering, I'm doing whatever. And then I got 8 hours for Coach Blackhall, right? To sleep and eat and do those kind of things. So I always say, man, you got to learn to divide your days up. Don't spend too much time on stuff that don't matter. And then when you're in your work zone, concentrate on the work zone. Leave that box open at work for work, right? And close all the rest of them. And so it's just important that they start to understand, right? And they start to grab those skills that is going to help them when they're 25, when they're 35, something down the road, because they're going to be parents someday. They're going to be uncles, they're going to be aunts, they're going to be whatever. So they need to be able to pass some skills along. And that's what I hope we do here.
I think it is what you do here. I know it is what you do here, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to keep beating the horse that we need to do more of it. And I know that I got supporters like the director of education that visited you. We all know
Oh,
that
absolutely.
what you do needs to be done more, 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 more. We're also at a crossroad. We're at a fork in the road, as Elon Musk likes to call it. Things are changing. So not only are we going to bring manufacturing jobs back, it seems like some of the entitlement programs that are getting scrapped are going to be gone for good. Generally, the old saying is cutbacks don't come back. And
Right.
I don't know if the president's doing it legally or not, but the momentum's there to really come to the realization that some things aren't coming back. So people need to be prepared for that as well. And so if we're going to do that, we need to prepare people for that. We
Right.
need to prepare people for
And if
that.
you're between 17 and 19, you are not too old for a new dog to
Not at
learn a new
all.
trick, right?
Not at
So
all.
if and it frustrates me anyway, Trip, to think about people selling their own talent short, right? For that, I don't know, I don't even know what it is, Trip. Maybe $1,000, $1,200 that hits the mailbox. Man, your value is so much more than that, right? Because you know that you have talent, that you're smart enough, whatever. Don't trade all of that in potential for $1,000, for $1,200, right? Because that's, man, you're just staying broke, right? I mean,
Right.
all that money that they only give you enough money to stay poor, right? They don't. That's all they do, right? They
And
just
it's not
give you
working.
enough money to stay poor, and that's I think, and I know this is political, but I really think poorer people are easier to manipulate because it's like I'm the carrot in front of the horse kind of thing. And so, but once people start to understand, no, I'm worth more than that. I just have to get off the couch and go get it. And they realize that they do have the talent, they do have the skill, they do. Somebody does have confidence in me, and somebody has taught me some resiliency. Somebody has taught me how to survive in the big bad world. And you get out there and you start doing that, Trip, it can happen, right? It can happen. We can have such a change where we can say, yeah, my doctor's over here, but we had a cookout, and the doctor, the plumber, the welder, the grocer, we all stood in the front yard right here and drank the same beer, right? And I
Yeah.
think we need to get to that point where, I'm not better than you because of my job. No, it's just what I chose to do. It has nothing to do with anything, man. And you're going to find out the beer's just as cold. Doesn't matter, right? So just sit there and enjoy it and learn from each other. And that's where that whole love and respect comes in, man. We got to just respect folks for where they are and what they bring to the table and what they do.
That is, I love when you say love and respect. And you're literally the father figure of 300 kids. And we need a,
Absolutely. Yeah, I am.
a thousand more of that'll cover 300,000 kids. But then when you talk about those 300,000 kids, they may be the next generation of Daryll Blackhalls and the next generation of Workforce Advantage Academy. That's a momentum worth building. Like you said, I've said it this way, that both parties have a vested interest in seeing to it that there's a permanent underclass in America. But like you said, social programs, and like Charles Koch said in his book, From the Bottom Up, they don't do any good. And there is a sense of resentment from people who have lived on them their whole life. They feel like they've been kept down. We feel like we're being charitable, championing the vulnerable. And I do think some vulnerable need champion, but some vulnerable need to be championed at a lower grade, at a lower age. And just like we talk about in Osceola County, the school bus stops at Motel 6. Well, those kids could be doctors. Not
Absolutely.
and they could be plumbers. I had a friend, and it's a perfect example of what you're saying. I had a friend. He was a great electrician, but he could never own his own business. He was a licensed journeyman. He worked for great companies, got paid really well. But when he wanted to get the contractor's license, in order to have the contractor's license to
Got to
pass
pass
that
them.
exam,
Yes.
yeah, and there's financials in there, and there's the financials was the hard part for him, and then the graphing even he knew how to read a blueprint and draw one, but the financials were in there as far as the contractor license, not the journeyman license.
Right.
So
Right.
he tried it, and he realized he couldn't. It was too late for him to expand his knowledge into that. It should never be too late for somebody.
No.
We should be building those we should be, however you get those serotonins in the brain working at a young age, they'll work forever into later
Absolutely.
life.
You
Yeah.
sometimes you have to retrain them, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
they're not used to coming home from work and sitting down and studying and doing those things. But I tell you, I'm gonna brag on my champion here. President Clinton back in the day, uh, his that welfare to work program that he was trying to get through.
He got some of it through.
He did, but I tell you the ultimate plan would it's sort of like the old Roosevelt plan, but still it was training people to be ready for work, right? And so that way it where do you want and then you ask the American people the blunt question, where do you want your tax dollars to go? Do you want it to keep these people sitting on the couch? Or do you want it to go to training programs so these people aren't sitting on the couch, that they're out contributing to the workforce, right? So you can say, I know a lot of folks talk a lot of horrible things about President Clinton, but when it came to just being a president, he really had a good plan,
He did.
and so I am always, I'm not afraid to run him out and prop him up, because I'm telling you, not only could he put together a budget, who told you, he said it's not magic, it's just math, right? And so
Right.
run that budget out there and also have a plan to get people out of their homes, get them off their couches, and get them to work, because people are proud of what they do, right? I mean, you painters, electricians. I have a few in my family, and we'll still ride by buildings, right? And they'll go, dude, I ran the wires in there.
Exactly.
That was 25 years ago. Those wires are probably gone, but they will tell you, I ran the wires in there, right? And because there's a sense of pride in workmanship. And so I have a nephew that works for Toyota, and he can talk to you about paint and airbags and all kinds of stuff that he goes on, and it's almost like, he invented them, because there's a sense of pride and ownership in something like that, when you can see it afterwards, that you're just not going to get by getting a check and sitting on the couch, right? Because nobody's going to go, oh, you sat on the couch today, baby. Oh, that's wonderful. You're right. Nobody's going to do that. But if you ride by and say, I put the wires in that building, they're going to say, oh man, that's pretty cool. I can't wire nothing, right? So at least there's people that join in with your joy, right? And I think it's just time for us as a nation to put some silly things that divide us just away, and start concentrating on what we can do to go forward, right? To what can we do? How can we make sure that Morgan and Morgan is as important as the guy that comes and parks his car? How can we do that? And I think don't sue me, Morgan and Morgan, because that's your name. But it's just, I just want, even though I know, right, we're not all going to make the same money, but we can treat each other with the same respect because what we do and what we bring to the table is so important, right? I think we're running out of our hunter gatherers, right? We need more hunter gatherers. We need to get them back out there. We need our farmers. We need our mechanics. We need those people. We need those kids. And I think, it all starts here. Get that high school diploma, get those grades, and then find the path. I am not here to tell you what job you want. I want you to tell me what job you want. And then let's research it together to find out how you get to your goal, because it's your goal, and it is just one of those things that we do well. And I just I wish I could get this out in more places, but our schedule's wonky. There's a lot of businesses sometimes that don't want to work with young people, and I know that's tough. Um, but luckily we live in Orlando where we have, I mean, our job market is great, right? So our kids, if our kids don't have a job, they probably don't want one, right?
In
Because
Orlando, yes, that is the
we
case.
have kids, from fast food to sporting goods to all the theme parks, right? And shout out to all my theme parks right now because they take my kids and God bless them. I appreciate you giving them a chance. Um, because once my kids start making a little money and they start interacting with tourists and visitors and park guests, it changes their view of humanity to a certain degree. And I really appreciate all my companies that gives my kids a chance, because most of these, even though they're between 17 and 19, they've never had a job anywhere. So this is their first job, and it takes a little patience sometimes. When you're looking at an 18-year-old, you just have those expectations, but he's never been taught or she's never been
He's
taught.
never
And
been
so
nurtured at all. He's just been thrown
absolutely.
to the wolves.
And
He
so
doesn't know what
so
he's doing.
or they get all their information off TikTok or YouTube and they think customer service is throwing the cold drink back at the person because they cursed at them or whatever. And that is, you know, it's like, man, you're getting a global view out of a snapshot, right? And so you have to do better. You have to do better. So it's so important that we teach those lessons.
Yeah, I mean, I really am so super excited that we could. I really do believe we can. I'm going to beat this point to death that we could possibly get what you do on a larger scale because I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know where the funding is going to come from. I mean, granted, it's a pipe dream, but when you talk about pride, when I was a kid, I came to Florida to work for my uncle. I was a landscaper. I still drive by communities. I say I did every house in that community, every irrigation system, every front yard, every oversaw all the sod that went down in there. And it is a sense of pride, but imagine the sense of pride. Those kids come to your school. Like you said, we got to have them in the seats. We got to have that. They've got to be there. We can't fake the documents. They've got to be there. But if we make those, however, if we do it online, if we make that an incentive-based accomplishment, where could you imagine the pride if their Christmas dinner they bring home was from a Publix gift card from sitting
Right,
in your class and
right,
accomplishing and graduating and getting that GED and getting that diploma, the real high school diploma, not just the GED. And it would change every aspect of their life. They would remember that this is how you do it. That this is how I didn't need a government check and I didn't need to finagle the government system and I
right.
didn't and it's
I
not the
didn't need to
government.
have a baby at 17.
No, right. I would need to
Right,
stay focused in school. And I didn't need to sell my soul to some drug dealer or some
right,
pimp.
right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that would change the outcome in so many aspects. The return on investment would be huge. The amount of crime that we wouldn't see. When we talk about borders and countries bringing over their drugs, I always say there's an issue of supply and demand. Yeah, we need to cut off the supply,
It's
but we need to cut off the
economics, Trip.
demand.
That's right.
I
It's
mean,
economics, Trip. It's what it is, right?
right. If nobody's
We could
buying, they're going to stay over there.
absolutely. I mean, same with human trafficking. Same with all these
Right.
things. If there was no demand, there was no need for supply, right? That's
Right.
basic economics. So what can we do? And the crazy thing, supply and demand, right? So here's where I am. I just wish that education was cool again, right? We got this nation to stop smoking in a generation because we taught them that it's killing you. So why can't we use some of that funding, right, that we use to stop smoking? Why can't we do to say, hey, look, this education piece is important, right? You don't have to go to Harvard to be successful. You can go to Valencia. You can go to Orange Technical. You can go to Job Corps. You can go to, the automotive place. Wherever it is you want to go and be successful. Look, my middle boy went to UTI, the car place, the car automotive place. He has now worked for Audi for man, I don't know, man, 10 or 12 years. Dude is a guy, he's an auto mechanic at Audi. Guy makes six figures, dude,
Right.
working on cars, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you walk in his house and it's like, holy mackerel, this is, and it's like, all right, dude, you go, right? It was worth every penny of that education. So I think it's just super important that we just say, hey, look, education's important, and it's not all about sitting there taking that state exam, right? No, I need you to be bigger than that and more broader than that. Because I need you to learn about whatever it is you care about. If it's economics, go be an economics guy, be a logistics guy. But if it's plumbing, manual labor, agriculture, get after it, man. Just go
Whatever you
do it.
choose. But also, you got to know what you got to. I feel like you need to know what you're interested in too. You got to somewhere we have to get that experience out there, and that's what we do when we get people in the job world. Is we give them
Absolutely. Like when you come to us, right? So day one at Workforce Advantage Academy, right? You come in from wherever high school you've come from. We take a basic skills test first day, right? I want to know what your reading level is. I want to know what your math level is, right? So take it serious and knock it out. It's not 1,000 questions, right? It's really it's less than 100 for the reading and math combined. And then after that, we take that job interest test. I mean, you and I are about the same age, Trip. So remember
yeah.
when we were like sophomores and they gave us that test, what would you be more interested in doing this?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we do that here, right? And then I sit with them and I go, okay, it looks like you're not interested in working with your hands, right? So let's throw out those things. But then it'll give you those kind of jobs that you are interested in. And then we start going, okay, so out of these five it gives you, what are two that you care most about? And then we start laying out that path. Because I always tell them at 17, you don't have to have life figured out, but you got to start knowing which path to choose.
That's right.
So, so we do that, right? And also, I just have to throw this in. A couple of years ago, our registrar and our lab manager put together a rewards program. Trip. You would be so proud of them. So if we catch you doing something good on campus, right? You've passed a test, you completed an ingenuity class, you've done whatever, you get a rewards card. Then we have a website that you go to with your rewards points, and you can get stuff, right? Earbuds, beats. If you get a lot of points, hell, man, I'll buy you a laptop. I don't care, right? Because I want you to be rewarded for the right things, right? And then I'm a big praise in public guy. So when we do when we have honor rolls and things, when kids make the honor roll, I always make sure that we get together in a big town hall and I hand you your certificate and we praise in public, right? So same thing with these rewards. At the end of the month, when you've turned in your rewards tickets and you got your Beats or you got your tablet or you got, I don't care if you got a little gift card to Starbucks, whatever, then come down and get it. And we'll say, hey man, this is what the reward points will do for you, right? And get you these little things that you want. And so that is something we do here. We give away points for attendance, right? Because attendance is so hard. Um, ever since COVID, right? We just struggle with attendance, right? The kids don't want to get up and I don't have a big yellow bus to come get you, so you either got to drive or walk or mom or Lamborghinis or get on the city bus, right? Now I'll buy you a ticket for the city bus, but I still need you to get up and go.
Get on the bus.
And the problem is, Trip, you could live 5 blocks from here, but it's still going to take you 30 minutes to get here, right? Because the bus stops every 40 feet or whatever it is. So it's still going to take you forever to get here. So that's going to take some discipline on your part to get up, put your clothes on, because we're a uniform school. So you got to get your uniform on, get down to the bus stop, get here, check in, go through security, right? So that all takes time management. It also takes some discipline to be able to get through those things. So man, I just, it's funny as you talk, because I forget, not that I forget, it's just that just after so many years, things that we do just is sort of natural, right? It's just because it's what we do. So when you talked about the rewards program, I was like, man, we've been doing that for 3 years. And let me tell you something, it flipping works,
It
right?
does. It
It,
does because kids are proud of their accomplishments,
it
and
flipping
it's
works.
gonna make. And you know what's funny and interesting to the most minuscule point of all. When you say we got people to stop smoking, we made the cigarette companies pay for that initiative.
Absolutely.
So and that's that. Not a single tax dollar paid for that initiative.
Nope.
They owned up to their all their bullshit
Yeah,
and they paid
absolutely.
for that initiative. And it
Absolutely.
worked. I mean, I don't see an issue anymore kids smoking in the bathroom in high schools anymore. I
Nope.
don't think it's cool anymore. I mean, and it was a big deal to us when we were kids, but
It was in
that
every movie. It was in every,
right,
I mean, they
right.
had the Marlboro Man for Pete's sakes, right?
And
So,
we used to walk through New York City streets, and there was pretty girls handing out four packs of four cigarettes to try something different. And the
yeah,
cigarette company abandoned all that,
yeah,
and we made them pay for. So, a sense, yes, this was an arm twisting, a health factor, but corporate America would. If you take the two logics, take Charles Koch's logic that you're taking kids from Harvard, not from Orlando
right.
Workforce Academy. You're taking kids from Harvard. You're putting them in $300,000 a year jobs, and they have no freaking clue how to do the simplest tasks.
Nope. They're like a
Comp-
they're like a trained monkey. They know
the,
one thing, right? They know one
right.
thing.
The corporate America thinks they got the best pedigree for the job, and then they realize they got a dog that shits in the house all
Yeah,
day. And
absolutely.
and so you can change that, and they would pay for it. Granted, this is a pipe dream, and granted, this is a giant vision. But if you think about it, it's a realistic vision that corporate America would pay for it in some respects.
How do you eat an elephant, Trip?
One bite at a time, brother.
One bite at a time, baby, right? So you've got to it all start like for us, man, I had to go and knock on doors on every high school and get inside the with the counselors, right? I had to shake hands and kiss babies for years just to say this is who we are and this is what we do, right? And then it's like, okay, coach, good to see you. Nothing but love, right? But then a few kids were coming, right? And then next thing you know, those kids are actually graduating. And then it's like, hey, they're really doing something down there, right? So now they're calling me, right? Hey, coach, I got a kid that just he's working too much. He's gonna fail, and I don't want him to fail. Can you take him? Right. And so and usually by October, November, I'm like trying to hunt a spot to put them, right?
Right.
I gotta drag in a chair somewhere because we're running out of places to go. And now over the last 3 years, we don't have to, we still do the mail outs, right? We still do those kind of things, but we don't have to beg folks to come to Workforce Advantage Academy anymore, right? We don't have to, we don't, because people just know, right, that no, they're doing good things, and what they're saying they're doing. They're not making it up. They're not one of those charter schools that are just taking money and going to disappear. This is year 21. I don't think we're going anywhere. So it's just now we're getting to that point where people are starting to buy in. We're becoming generational. We got brothers, sisters, cousins.
You
For the
built
first
this
time last year,
dynasty.
for the first time last year, Trip, we had the son of a mom who was in our first graduation class.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
And it's
It's
like, wow,
amazing.
that was a first for us, right? Because we've become that generational school. And we write resumes for parents. I have sat in here with moms and helped them get through Indeed or get through Snag a Job. And because I feel that a school should be an important part of a community, right? Yes, we're here to teach you how to graph that line, but I want you to be better. I want you to leave this campus. I don't care if you're a parent. I don't care if you're a student. I want you to leave this campus better than when you walked on. And it's not that hard if you give a damn, Trip, right? If you
No.
care and you care about that family and you do those things, the only bad thing is it will emotionally wear you out, right? It will wear you down. Like I am so looking forward to this 3-day weekend to do absolutely nothing. I may go to Garyland and just lay out on the dock. I don't know. But it'll emotionally wear you down. But the thing is that it also will keep you energized once you start seeing those successes. You start seeing those successes and it's like, oh my God, little Timmy came in reading at a fourth grade level. Now he's at an eighth grade level. And now he's got a job. And now he's running with a different crowd. He's not going to go down here to 33rd now. He's going to go over here to Orange Tech, right? Because now he's decided to be in trades. And so when you start seeing those successes over the years, it's easy to stay energized, right? It's easy to be excited about what you do. Um,
It's a
it's
beautiful
hard
thing.
right at first.
Yeah, it's incredible what you've done. And 300 kids a year now. 300 kids. You're
300
making
kids a
that
year.
300 kids, and you didn't know if you'd have three kids to first class, and now you're
Oh
at
yeah,
300.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And we didn't.
and
Our for the when we opened, let's see, 2006, I guess, was when we had our first graduating class, and I think we had maybe 22 graduates. So we were like, man, I don't know if this thing's gonna make it or not. And then all of a sudden, we were getting back then it was FCAT, right? And we were getting kids to get through FCAT, and they're like, what are they doing down there? And it's like you can do it when you only have a few, right? You can have a whole round table and sit and do math together and do those kind of things. Um, and now we still do it every day after school from 3:20 till 4 o'clock. Every day is open house study hall. So if there's something you didn't get in class or if there's something you want a little extra help in, we're just here. Our teachers don't go home. They sit here for that extra 40 minutes after school and will help you with anything. And I think, including just sit here and drop life on you, right? So if you want to talk about resiliency or if you want to talk about math, history, science, we got you, right? And um, it's also our time when our parents come, right? It's that 40 minutes that our parents show up and they go, hey, not for nothing, but would you read this resume and just tell me if you think it's okay, right? And that is, I mean, I try not to think about how good that is, but I love that so much, to know that another human trusts us that to not only take care of their child and educate their child, but also trust us with their future. Because that's the way I see it, Trip. is like, hey, would you read this resume because I'm about to send it out, but I trust you enough to look at it before I send it to that employer. Man, that just means a lot to me.
That's beautiful. A real life story of I got laid off from COVID from the company I love to work for a year. I got laid off. I literally, the first thing I did was realize I do not know how to do a resume. I was bored. I told my wife I'm bored. I did not have two kids late in life to stop working early in life.
Got
I
you.
was bored. And so I went on Indeed and I had no freaking idea how to even do
Absolutely.
it. So I just abandoned the whole. Actually, Zach helped me, but I had no idea. Correspondence, I didn't understand what to do. So I just abandoned the whole idea. I told my mom I'll come. I started redoing her landscaping in her house. I was renting a trailer from U-Haul tools from Home Depot, and I had some stuff in the garage. And her neighbors and her friends were like, "Come here, come here." So for that year, I actually kept busy for the most part doing that stuff. But it's so important to have a friend like Zach that can help you actually do a resume. It's important that you have that knowledge, and I didn't. I didn't have it, and I didn't even have the email back and forth knowledge, the Zoom back and forth knowledge. It was all new to me, and I was fine with being on autopilot, going to this company that I thought was invincible, and suddenly I got laid off for a year.
Right. It's
And
too big to fail.
right,
My
right.
my my nephew's he was in the Air Force, and then transferred to Southwest once he retired, and he was in the same boat. He was unemployed for a year, and it was making him crazy, right? Because he's like, what do I do? Do I be a bus driver? What do I do? Right? He said, I've got only thing I've ever done is fly, and he said, now I
Yeah.
can't fly. So now what do I do? Right? So he got a project car, and he did little things to make some side money, and it's like, oh my goodness, man, because I you don't think about a disruptor of that fashion, right? We all know
Oh,
there's service disruptors, right? And I warn our kids about that when they're picking, they're picking careers at 17, 18, 19. Make sure that it's not going to be something that's easily disrupted, right? Don't be a bank teller, right? Because bank tellers may have another 5 or 6 years
it's
before
coming to
they're
an end,
completely
though. Yeah.
automated, right? And so I said, watch the self-driving cars, watch these kind of things, because make sure that um, make sure it's a career that is gonna bring you to retirement, right? So make sure you can either work on something or be involved with something that is going to be long term. You don't have to invent the car, right? You could maybe just you work on the brakes, but the brakes are always going to be there, right? Because that car is still going to have to stop at some point. So you didn't have to invent the whole car. You just have to know one system. And I think that is super important that we get through, to keep taking the big elephant and narrowing it down.
One bite at a time.
What can you do?
I always had this crazy. I love your AB schedule. So this is the craziest thing I'm going to say on this whole show. So imagine if we did do this thing online at some level, and imagine the AB schedule where the classes, say for example, Longhorn Steakhouse had the slowest night on Monday, and that's where you go have class. Is that and you get a nice dinner because there's kids. Food insecurity affects children and the potential for turning to a life of crime more significantly than any other problem in life. And there's kids that don't even have dinner at night. So
That's right.
imagine if we had those kind of classes at Outback or on their slowest night in one room or and they got a nice meal and they part of that meal was to sit and pay attention to that class and they get their class time and they build their momentum for the high school degree. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud now,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it's not the craziest thought in the world to think that corporate America could pay for a significant part of this expansion. Because, like I said, when you read Charles Koch book and the problems that the companies that are getting most of their recruits from Harvard and Yale and the Ivy Leagues is they know how to analyze a big spreadsheet, but they don't know
Absolutely.
how to communicate. They don't know how to send an email without pissing off the secretary,
Right.
and it's like,
Those soft skills we're losing. Technology is kind of stealing soft skills. It's a whole thing. Sometimes we don't even know we're being rude, right?
or condescending.
Or, I always warn my teachers, right, when they send an email home or whatever. I said, remember, emails have no tone. So you have to make sure that what you say is exactly what you really wanted to say, because you don't know if the mom's had a bad day, what tone she's going to put on your words. I think that we kind of forget that sometimes, and so we don't know, or we don't understand that our soft skills, or technology stealing our soft skills.
Yeah, man, I just love what you do, bro. I just love what you do. I love.
Me too, man. That's why I get to be this
I
old and
mean,
still doing it.
it's like I said, I'm not a political activist at all. I just love education. I'm a Jesuit. I believe in education. I believe it's a solution to everything. And I just think we need to reinvent it in some respects, just like you've done. And just like you said, you did it knocking on doors, three kids at one, and
That's
now
it.
I'm just, I just love it. Um, I don't know, Daryl, what else do you want to share?
Man, Trip, we've talked about it so much. I just appreciate you letting me get on here and keep yelling into the wind, brother. Because I really do appreciate you allowing me to talk about workforce, but also talk about, the bigger picture, right? Because that's important. We need parents to keep parenting, right? Be your kid's friend some other time. I need you to be that parent right now and tell them to wash his socks and do those things, right? And then let us worry about that life after high school, and let us worry about the education piece, and not having to install that moral compass, or not have to teach basic manners, right? Those are the first lessons that should be taught at home. And if we could concentrate more on those educational pieces and those life skill pieces, I think we could really get this boat a long way down the canal. So that's kind of where I am. And Trip, man, I appreciate you having me today, brother.
I love having you. I appreciate you being on the show. I was so happy when I looked at that text I saw. I said, "Man, he's gonna say no." I was so happy when you said, "Heck yeah!" I was like, "Oh my
Oh,
God,"
dude,
because
you give me an opportunity to brag about my place, man. I'm always going to take you up on it, dude.
I believe me, I'll be reaching out again and again over time. I absolutely, I'm so set on this as being my next sense of mission in life. My kids are getting bigger. I'm fine where I'm at work. I want to really spend a lot of time on this, and I don't want to talk about particular politicians. I just want to talk about solutions, get past all that,
Absolutely.
and really whatever I can contribute to making America better and better and better, I want to be a part of at this point in time in my life.
It's easy to pour water on a drowning man, right? When you start talking about politics and different parties, and right wing, left wing, same bird, I mean, you just have to sometimes go, no, what do you bring into the table? How can we fix it?
Right,
Not
right.
not that what's going to be better for my party, what's going to be better for my kids. And I think once we get that focus, what's going to be better for us as a nation, what's going to be better for us, I always say, where we in America fall short is that there are so many civilized countries that have 100-year plan, and we only have an election term plan, where my plan is only for the next 4 years, 6 years, whatever that term of the election is. And we don't have a 100-year plan as a nation. And I really think we need to really start thinking about that and say, no, we're bigger than that. And if we're going to be too big to fail, then we need to make sure we plan that way.
Well, I agree with you, 100. That's a point I made, not to get political, but we every 4 to 8 years we switch gears faster than a Yamaha. That's how we do it in America politically. So I
Sure.
always use the example of General Electric. General Electric was the big success story for Jack Welch was financial, but when they realized financial was their biggest downfall, the next three CEOs got back into manufacturing and abandoned financial. And so now GE is blossoming. I mean, but the reason being isn't because they stayed with the same CEO for 20 years. No, they went from one to another, but each one followed suit.
Right,
Not the next one didn't say, "Oh, we need to get back into mortgages," and the next one didn't say, "We need to get back into financing cars and everything else." No, they stayed on manufacturing. In America, we're going to be on this binge we're on, call it what you will, for 4 years.
right,
My feeling is, I don't whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. If the same momentum doesn't continue, if the next guy in line with along with that thinking doesn't get elected, and the next guy in line has the exact opposite, the only thing we're to do is harm the system, shock the system more than
right,
anything. You can't
right.
just keep going back and forth every four
No,
years. You can't.
no.
So at some point,
It's counterintuitive, man. I
you're
mean, it
right.
doesn't work.
So I used General Electric because they had to split the company up, but the split went well. The breaking up the company into three different divisions went well, and all three CEOs that followed stayed on the same course. They didn't say let's bring the company back together.
Absolutely.
Let's no, it's three separate entities now, and we're going to build the business like that. And they kept on, and now it's back in business, and GE's back in manufacturing, and out of all the other crap they were was
If
showing a
they
huge.
stayed the course for over a longer period of time instead of jumping from dot to dot.
Right. And that's what we do in America. It's like 8 years of this,
Yeah,
slam, let's turn the clock back. And
yeah,
it's just shocking the system, and the shocks are having more and more of an adverse effect every time.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Daryl. You're amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me, Trip. I appreciate you. My best to the fam. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Oh, we will. We will. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, that this is Daryl Blackwell, Executive Director of Workforce Advantage Academy, and I love what you do. If any kids are listening, reach out to them. It's Workforce Advantage Academy. It's online. You can Google the number, unless you want to tell us your website and your number.
Sure. It's www.workforceorlando.com and numbers 407 898 7228.
So if you don't think you're going to make it through high school, and you should really want that high school diploma, and you're able to get to his school, just like he said, he'll buy you a bus pass. Other than that, you're going to have to figure out how to get there. But
Yep.
reach out to Daryl. Thank
Absolutely.
you,
And I
brother.
appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much.
Thanks
Thanks,
for having
Daryl. I love it. Thank you.